Hey, what's up, guys? I am finally about to put the 12K together. After I do that, I can start testing it. I thought that some of you would probably like to see the battery pack wiring. So, this pigtail is connected to the terminals on the board, and it runs up to this pigtail. And to do this, I used a Dean's connector because it's narrower than an XT60, and doing these I have to sand down the side of the positive end a little bit so it fits flush when these mate together. So that's been done on either one of these. But then from here we go to a male Dean's connector. And again, we're using Dean's connectors for the fit. The male connector goes to this female connector. So yeah, that's 1, 2, 3 connectors to the battery. Yeah, that's a lot of connectors, but I've done this several times, no issues. And then we have finally an XT60 connector with some 16 gauge wire. This up here is 14, really not that big of a deal. I'm sorry, 18. Okay, now the reason that I've just got it coming out of here like this is because he's going to cut this out, and he hadn't quite figured out how he wants to do it, but he's going to cut both sides out so he can mount the battery inside here. Now let's jump on over to the hopper. If you remember where we last left off, I was going to cut this out. We've got the motor mounted in there at a 45-degree angle. Right now I can't remember why I had to make a motor plate for it and mount it at a 45-degree angle, but it is. And these are our magnets that go on either side of it. Just seeing I got a little play in there. Most likely not a big deal. No, that would be the same amount of play it would have in it with the sides. And I cut this out. Actually, first made a scan of another hopper of that part and printed several tests. Finally got it how I wanted it. So when the magnets aren't in there, that just goes back like so. And I still need a way to fasten it on there, but I was trying to figure a way to make a cover for the magnets when they're there. Sorry, I'm trying not to break these magnets. I'm just not going to put them on right now. But I wanted a cover for when the magnets were installed. Problem is, when they're on here, they would stick out of the bottom of this. Besides that, with those magnets on there, we're really going to be driving that motor hard, and it'll be better to have it open to the air so it can help cool it down. I'm thinking that for most of the functionality of this build, it's gonna work. Most of the functionality will be done without the magnets. Those will be just for showing off. So that's really why I wanted to make sure that I could cover it back up. Now let's get this thing together. I don't think I'm gonna test it today. The wife puts the new chickens right in my test area, so I'll have to tell her to not put them there tomorrow, and then I can get to banging on it then. But right now we're going to put it back together. We'll see how it looks and go from there. I almost forgot, for those of you who are interested, the way I did this was there's like a 1/4-inch hole drilled in there. Fed the wires through all the way and attached my male connector to it. And whenever you're soldering any of these connectors, I found that if you plug it into its mating connector and then solder it, that prevents the terminals from walking off on you and getting out of alignment. Anyway, once I've soldered that connector with the wires sticking out of it, I connected it to the female end and just kind of pulled on the wires and kept pulling on the wires as I moved it back, kept pulling on the wires as I moved it back, but not unplugging it. And then when this was seated properly, I went in there and I gave it a shot of hot snot, and that is how that is done. Now this, it's got some more hot snot just holding it in place. Maybe later on the owner will want to epoxy that. I just don't really like doing stuff that is permanent to these, even though there are some cuts in that. Yeah, I'll let him do that if he decides that he wants to epoxy it in there, but right now it's working, and that part is still reversible if needed. A quick side note to the owner, for the rest of you guys, he sent 2 of these, and the other one's a Classic, and I wanted to put the muzzle from the Classic on the Blackbird because they're shorter and the ones on the Blackbirds look stupid. But I noticed, just a little point of interest, at some point somebody put a set screw in there. Have no idea what it was used for. Just wanted to point that out. Alright, we've got it all together. The reason that we're going with the short barrel, for now anyway, is that that's going to help us get our rounds per minute up there. The longer the barrel you have, the more pressure it pushes against the BBs trying to get up to the valve body, and likewise the more pressure that you have on your regulator. We're going to be running this off of high pressure air. The harder it is, the more pressure you create in there, and the harder it is to force BBs up. So we're probably going to be dropping this thing down in pressure as we climb up as we need to, and we'll just get some numbers on that as we have to do that and see how close to 12K we can go. My guess is that the solenoid is going to give out. I'm really hoping we can get to 10K. If we can't, what I wanted out of this build was to find out how far could we push it, because I didn't figure that out with 8K. Now I guess the moment of truth is to flip the switch and see if this thing catches on fire. We've got the soft start circuit in there for our 6S pack, and that's to prevent our switch from welding closed. We've got our magnets on the motor, and those are going to pull more amperage, and got a heavier gauge wire for that as well, a little bit thicker than the factory stuff. And those factory wires there, teensy weensy, but they'll do 4 or 5K, no problem. All right, here goes nothing. Probably something to do with our soft start switch. So back to the drawing board. I'm gonna swap out the battery and we'll see how that goes. Alright, we've still got a 6S pack on there. It is slightly smaller. I'm expecting the same result. It's a little bit faster. Let's drop down to a 5S. Okay, I've got a quick little update for you. I just messaged Sergey about what's going on. Haven't heard back from him yet, and I got to thinking about it, and I thought it had something to do with the draw of the motor, because when I tested the circuit, it didn't have any issues, but there was no real draw on it. So I came back out here and unplugged the hopper, and it worked just fine. And I got to thinking a little bit more. Maybe the magnets are causing something to happen in there. And sure enough, I took the magnets off and it worked fine. And I stuck them on in a different orientation, and it seems to be working fine. Now, the only issue that we might have is if that specific orientation is the same orientation that makes the motor spin faster. But yeah, we'll see. I'll get you guys caught up on where what that turns out to be. This video's been long enough. I think now I'm gonna tear down the hopper and find out what orientation the magnets need to be in to make it spin faster. Figure out a way. I'm probably going to paint them a specific way to let the user know how they need to go on to make it spin faster. Alright guys, you guys make sure you got a mask over your buttholes, and I'll see y'all later.